The rooftop Christmas tree is a nice idea, but there are several things about this film that I don't agree with, things that I just think weren't really thought through properly. This was released originally in 2016. It's directed by David Winning, written by Bryar, Reid, and Landria Onkka, and it stars Michelle Morgan as Sarah and Tim Reid as Dale Landis and Stephen Huszar as John. And Sarah has moved back home. She's left the legal practice she was working with and is planning on setting up her own practice. And it seems like there's a case that she can really sink her teeth into straight away because her neighbour, Mr. Landis, every year puts a Christmas tree up on his roof. And every year he has to go to court for it because it's a violation of building codes, apparently. I don't know why exactly it's a danger and jeopardizes public safety because people put lights on their roofs all the time. Maybe because it's a heavy thing. I don't know, but I'm going to assume that it's correct, that it's a violation, it's a danger, and he has to take it down. And every year he'd rather go to jail and go to court and risk fines just to keep that tree up. And I cannot get past that sense of entitlement. Now, he does have a reason for doing it. And part of the mystery of the film is wondering what this reason is, and I will come back to that with a spoiler warning in a bit. But at the end of the day, if it is a risk, if it is a genuine threat to people's safety, then it's an incredibly selfish, entitled thing to do. It doesn't matter what his reason is. If that could injure or even kill somebody, then I can't look past that, and I can't get behind him as a character. So I feel like that's a massive oversight for Sarah, who was helping him and supporting his case. It just never seemed to occur to her that there might be a genuine, valid, serious reason why that tree can't be on that rooftop other than just people being annoyed by it. And I just struggled to look past that sense of entitlement. And when we do find out why he puts it up every year, it was just a bit ridiculous. But I will, with a spoiler warning, come back to that. And there's also something else that didn't make a lot of sense to me as well, but that's a spoiler, so again, I will leave that for just now. Sarah and John are our romantic leads. The romantic relationship definitely is more in the background. The rooftop Christmas tree aspect of the story is absolutely, as it should be, the main narrative. But Sarah and John, who are on opposite sides of this court case, do have the beginnings of a relationship as they have to work together. And yeah, I feel like that part of it worked well. I think the way their relationship developed felt believable, and both of the characters outside of their involvement with the case were really likable and very convincing, very believable. The chemistry between the two of them I thought was great. So no complaints there. It's also a relatively festive film with a lot of pretty Christmas lights, Christmas decorations. It's not full of Christmas, we're not full of Christmas presents and hot cocoa and Christmas carols. So if you don't like Christmas films that are a bit sickly sweet, then this one actually might be for you. But that being said, I don't know if I recommend it because personally, there are just too many things in this that I really didn't agree with. The first one being the fact that, in theory, as far as we're told, Mr. Landis was risking people's lives by putting this tree up. If there is a genuine safety concern, then it's selfish and entitled. If we all did things we wanted with no regard for other people's safety, it would be terrible, and he needs to realise that the law is for everybody, him included. So I really couldn't look past that. The other things are spoilers, so I will discuss those now with a spoiler warning. They are quite big spoilers for things that happen towards the end of the film. And the first one is that they decided to put the Christmas tree back up, and they were able to do this by fast-tracking a permit. And I thought, okay, well then why didn't you just tell Mr. Landis that he can get a permit? If he wants to put it up, then obviously he has to do it up to code, and he can just apply for a permit every year and do it that way. Then problem solved. So it seems like they had a solution. And this wasn't the first year. I believe this was, I can't remember exactly, but there were at least the last couple of years he'd been in court about this. It hadn't been from the beginning. It had been more recently when things had started to change, and I think it was at least the last 4 years. So if that was the case, and you realised there was a pattern, surely you would just tell him, well, if you get a permit, and you do it properly, it's fine. So, problem solved. The whole court case didn't need to happen. He could have just got a permit and end of story. People would have been safer and he could have got to put his tree up. So, a little bit of an oversight there as well. And then the final thing is admittedly a little bit emotional when his son comes back at the end, which I kind of knew would happen. And we learn that he puts the Christmas tree up every year so that his son knows which house is his. I feel like if you're trying to find somebody, there's a much easier way of doing that than just putting a tree on your house. So that was just a little bit ridiculous. Like, I like the sentiment of it, but it basically implied that the only way his son would ever be able to track down his father is by looking for a tree on top of a house. It's a bit stupid. I like the sentiment of him putting the tree up every year as a symbol of hope, perhaps, that his son would one day come home. And it was a kind of almost superstition, if you like, where he put the tree up with the hope that it would guide his son home through Christmas magic. But it definitely implied that his son would only be able to find his father if there was a Christmas tree on his house. It's ridiculous. So it just felt really stupid. There were too many problems with the narrative. The sentiment was nice, and there were bits of the film, such as the relationship between Sarah and John, that I thought they were okay. But in general, it's a very poorly written narrative with too many holes in it. Too many ridiculous things that could have been resolved really quickly by telling him to get a permit and by his son just Googling his father's name or going back to the town where he used to live and asking around, not looking for this Christmas tree. That also suggests that his son is only allowed to find his father in December. So, too many issues with it. Not a good narrative, a nice idea, but ultimately a pretty terrible execution.